Hello. In this video, I want to go over 10 cards from Assassin's Creed, the set that I feel like nobody talks about anymore because it came out, it had tiny boosters, and it just faded into memory like a secret layer. And first up, the most popular card from Assassin's Creed is Brotherhood Regalia. For 2 colorless, it's an artifact equipment, with your cryptic creature has Ward 2, and is an assassin in addition to its other types and can be blocked. It has Equip Legendary Creature 1 and Equip 3. The main draw to this card is going to be that Equip Legendary 1, making our commander unblockable. Think about the number of commanders that care about dealing combat damage, like Obeka. Think about the equipment commanders, like Captain America. Think about your assassin decks. Back to the legendary creatures that attack and you want them to be unblocked. Think Cloud X Soldier. Wolverine wants to deal combat damage. Kali of the Vast wants unblockable on Kalia. And Brotherhood Regalia has a little bit of protection, but really can make our legendary commander unblockable. And that is really powerful. Next up is Excalibur Sword of Eden. For 12 colorless, legendary artifact, equipment, this spell costs X less to cast, where X is the total amount of value of historic permanents you control. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are historic. Equipped creature gets +10, +0, and has vigilance, and it equips only to legendary creatures for 2. Again, think about our equipment commanders, Captain America, First Avenger, Cloud X Soldier. Think about the commanders that can cascade into this, like Joda the Unifier, Nahiri Forged in Fury, and Cloud Midgar Mercenary, Sir Gwyn, Hero of Asheville. Those are all equipment commanders, and those are the kind of cards that want to play this card. The Mind Skinner, can already be unblockable, and giving this +10, +0 means it's going to deal lethal very quickly. If the Mind Skinner is your commander and it's a 10-1 that can't be blocked, Excalibur goes on it, you put 1+1+ encounter on it, and this thing deals a lethal amount of combat damage very quickly. It also has a high enough converted mana cost that big decks care about cascading off of it, like Zuldrak, Void Gorger if you're playing Eldrazi, or Joda the Unifier. They can cascade off of this for cheap because it costs less, where X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. So think about having a 10 colorless Eldrazi in play. You play this for 2, but both of those cards would cascade off of it as if it were 12. So Excalibur is a great piece of equipment for those kinds of decks. Next up is Alexios, Deimos of Kosmos. I hope I said that right. For 4 mana, it's a 4/4 legendary creature, Human Berserker Trample. If it attacks each combat fable, it can't be sacrificed and it can't attack its owner. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player gains control of it, untaps it, and puts a +1/+1 counter on it, and then it gains haste. The top commanders for this are Winota, Joiner of Forces, because it's a human that it's a human that you cascade into off of your non-humans attacking, and then you pass it on the table and it deals damage to your opponent. So it's a good thing to hit off of Winota because you attack with your, non-human angel or cleric or, warrior token. And then you get this and it just keeps dealing damage to your opponents. Deadpool wants to switch cards with it, pass it around, and just keep dealing 2 damage to your opponents. You want to be attacking your opponents. So playing cards, this would go good in a Goad deck, a Xantia deck, Blim, Comedic Genius, the types of commanders that give your opponents things. That would be good here. Thantis, the Warweaver, the Spider Commander that gets +1/+1 counters whenever things attack you. Now, this can't attack you, but if you're playing a deck that just makes your opponent's cards attack all the time, this would be good there. Zidane, Tantalus Thief from Final Fantasy. That card wants you to gain control of creatures your opponents control, and so you want your opponents to, gaining control of permanents from you so you can make treasure off of the ability, and that would go good in that deck. And also, it can be your commander. And as a commander, you build around this sort of very aggressive red deck. You goad your opponent's things. It's going to deal combat damage really often, so you put equipment on it, and then you get the benefit of it. Think about like when it deals combat damage or whenever it attacks, you get to search your library. If you give this card to your opponents with a Sword of the Animist on it, you still get those basic lands off of it, which is a lot of fun. Next up, I have Caduceus, Sword of Hermes. 2 and a white, it's a legendary artifact equipment. It gives the equipped creature lifelink. And as long as you have 30 or more life, equipped creature gets +5/+5 and has indestructible and prevent all damage to be dealt to this creature. And it has equip for white and a white. Again, I just keep going back to think about our Captain America decks. Think about our life gain decks that are going to want to play this card. And honestly, any deck wants to play this card because you always start 40 life. But think about your life gain decks. Your Orlo, your Yeshtola, your Hope Yeshtim, Bilbo Birthday Celebrant, Laisa. All of those commanders are going to want to play the life gain card and then give their life-limiting creature +5/+5. But also your equipment cards like Balon, Cloud, Captain America, Sir Gwyn, Cassandra, Nahiri Forged in Fury, Cloud X Soldier. All these cards want to play equipment. In Assassin's Creed, so far, 3 of the 4 cards we've looked at have been equipment. Because there's just random powerful swords in the set or shields in the set. And so in Commander, you just slide those into so many decks that end up being some of the most popular cards from the set. Next up is Desynchronization. Blue 2, return each non-land permanent that's not historic to its owner's hand. Artifacts, legendaries, and sagas would say. So this is super playable in any kind of legendary-based, artifact-based deck where you don't just return all of your tokens. Think Urza, Lord High Artificer. These kind of commanders like Breya, Ethereum Shaper, Iron Man, Titan of Innovation, Urza, Chief Artificer, Urtent, Remnant of Memnarch, Sorakai, Genesis Engine. These are all artifact-based decks. They don't want to have all of their things returned. Dr. Eggman cares about having, putting construct robots or vehicles from a hand onto the battlefield. Those are all vehicles. Yoda the Unifier is almost all legends, and so you don't want to return those things. Mendicant Core Guidelight. You make token copies of your artifacts. You don't want to return those with Desynchronization. So it's a one-sided board wipe. Plus Tom Bombadil if you're playing a saga-based deck. You don't want to return those cards to your hand. And so you can just make your opponents return their cards, and you get to keep all of yours. So it's a one-sided board wipe. It's very good. Overpowering Attack. For 3, a red and a red. It's a sorcery with free running, 2 and a red. You may cast this spell for its free running cost if you deal combat damage to a player this turn with an assassin or commander. It untaps all creatures you control to attack this turn. If it's your main phase, there's an additional combat phase after this phase, followed by an additional main phase. So you get an extra combat. So think about all of those decks that want an extra combat. Anything with an attack trigger. So I'm thinking Ishin, 2 heavens is 1. It doubles all your attacks. So if you have 2 attacks, then you get 4 times the amount of attacks. Kali of the Vast. Whenever it attacks an opponent, you put an angel, demon, or dragon card into play. The infamous Cruel Call. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you get your value. Alexios wants to attack multiple times. Gornog wants to attack multiple times. Think about Wolverine, Voria. Voria wants to attack more than once with your elves and your wolves. There's just so many instances where you're going to want extra attack triggers. And this can give them to you, especially if you have a commander that's hard to block. So anything with flying, anything with trample, anything with menace. Those cards are hard to block, and so they're good to get this for only 3 mana. Crystal Skull. Isu's Spyglass is 2, a blue and a blue for a legendary artifact. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may play historic lands and cast historic spells from the popular library. It taps to add blue. All of those artifact decks that I named in the past, this would be good in. Emry, Johora, Lycori, Urza, Golbez, Urza Chief Artificer, Leonardo da Vinci, Mendicant Core, Iron Man, Breya. These are all decks that want to play those kinds of cards from the top of your deck. Artifacts. Legends, Joda. Joda wants to play artifacts, and not artifacts, but legends. Plus, it adds blue mana. I did not realize when I've ever read this card in the past that it added blue mana. I also just want to point out that in the artwork under the skull, that kind of looks like the wrapping around a booster pack, like the way it's like perforated there. And I just noticed that. But Mishra, Mishra, Eminent One, or as a Lord Protector, these kind of decks want to play cards on top of our library. Now, it is in blue, and in blue, you can usually just draw cards, so it, takes up a little bit of the spot there, but seems pretty good. Abstergo Entertainment is a land, so it's super flexible, it's legendary. Tap, add a colorless. 1 tap, add 1 mana of any color, or 3 tap, exile it. Return up to 1 target historic card from a graveyard to your hand and exile it for your I'm starting to see a pattern. A lot of these cards care about historic because historic is so open. There's so many historic permanents in Commander because everything's a legend, everything's an artifact. There's a lot of equipment. But, this being a legendary land, you want to play it in decks that care about legendary things, like Joda the Unifier, like Rock, Son of Roga, and Yushimaru. Ultima Origin of Oblivion from Final Fantasy is just a colorless based commander. So all of those other Eldrazi, the Zuladoc Void Gorger decks, the Kozilek, the Great Distortion decks, the Karn Legacy Reforged decks, your legendary base decks, Shanid, Sleeper Scourge, your Saga base, Tom Bombadil decks, these things all care about legendary Thanes, colorless Thanes, and it would be good there. Plus, if you have anything like Arbaaz Mir that cares about legendary permanents entering the battlefield, which is actually on this list, and we'll walk into it in a minute, being able to return those things from your graveyard at the cost of just a colorless land, that's a lot of value. Basim Ibn Ishaq. Hopefully I said that right. I doubt I did. But a blue and a black for a 2/2 legendary creature, human assassin. Whenever you cast a historic spell, draw a card. It can't be blocked this turn. This ability triggers only once each turn. And when it goes common damage to a player, you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is really for your hardcore assassin build, This is the kind of deck you wanted. And you also want an index like Sisei, Weatherlight Captain, that gives +1/+1 for each color on legendary permanents, and this is 2 of those colors. You want to buff this guy with commanders, Arna, Kennerode, Sky Captain. That's the kind of deck for this. Rames, Assassin Lord, the one that makes whenever a player loses the game if they're attacked by an assassin. So you really you want to put this in your assassin decks, your assassin typo builds. And anything that can put +1/+1 counters on this bad boy would also be good. So that's why I think it's very playable in Joda the Unifier, because, you casting a historic spell of Joda the Unifier is so darn easy. It's just going to get bigger faster. And next, I have Arbaaz Mir. It's red and a white for a 2/2 legendary creature, human assassin. Whenever it or another non-token historic permanent enters the battlefield under your control, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. Again, this is very repetitive and it's very unfortunate, but these cards are good because artifacts, legendaries, and sagas are so ubiquitous. Everything's an equipment, everything's a mana rock, everything's a legendary. Your commanders are legendary, so all of those cards I've already named, this would be good in those builds as well. Plus, especially our equipment deck. This is very playable in the equipment deck. It weighs equipments very well because it gains you life as well. But those are the 10 most popular cards from Assassin's Creed. You let me know your thoughts on these 10 cards and Assassin's Creed, the set itself, in the comments below. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and may your top decks be ever in your favor. Thanks.